Good morning, good evening, wherever you are around the globe. My name is Jacqueline Bagay, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. Welcome to this very important discussion where I will be discussing about gender-based violence and prevention and response. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Gender-based violence is an umbrella term for any harmful that is perpetrated against a person's will, and that is also based on social subregs, gender differences between male and female. Domestic violence is defined as violence perpetrated by intimate partner and other family member, manifested through physical abuse, slapping, beating, stabbing, strangling, burning, choking, kicking, threats on the object or weapon, and murder. Sexual abuse, e.g., coerce, sex through threats, intimidation, physical force, unwanted sex acts, forcing sex with others, or sex acts without voluntary consent. Psychological abuse, threats of abandonment or abuse, containment to the home and surveillance, threats to take away custody of children, destruction of the objects, isolation and verbal, aggressive and consent humiliation, and economic abuse, denial or fund of refusal to contribute financially, denial of food and basic needs, and controlling access to health care, employment, etc. A survivor-centered approach is defined as the approach that places the right of needs and desire of women and girls as at the center of focus service delivery. This requires consideration of multiple needs of victims and survivors, the various risks and vulnerability, the impact of decision and action taken, and ensure service are tailored to unique requirements of each individual, women and girls. Service should respond to her wishes. Few weeks now, we have heard about the sad story of Miss Aluel Garang, also known as Aluel Messi, who was beaten and stabbed by her husband, Honorable Peter Mayen, who is the National Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management in South Sudan. The minister is expected to protect women of South Sudan and show good example to the youth as a way of advocating to all sorts of violence against women and girls in South Sudan. As well known, the women of South Sudan are standing by you because we all know that one injustice for one done to you is an injustice done to all women of South Sudan. We'll ensure justice prevails for you and for all women of South Sudan who is subjected to this inhumane treatment. Before we start our discussion today, I would like to briefly introduce our great panelists. Allow me to introduce to you Miss Regina Osole Lula. She has not yet joined us, but she will be joining us in a short while. Ms. Regina Lula is the Director General of the Ministry of Gender and Social Welfare in South Sudan. Ms. Regina has been working with the ministry for a long time in advocating and implementing the policies advancing agenda of women and girls in South Sudan. Honorable Atong Majok Kwel is a lawyer by profession and trained journalist who aids Board of Directors of South Sudan Media Authority. She's a human rights lawyer and women's rights activist. Honorable Atong is a member of board of National Alliance of Women Lawyers. Is also a member of South Sudan Association of Women Advocates. I'll go ahead to introduce Ms. Stella Oboya Mona. Ms. Stella Oboya Mona is a registered social worker. She takes pride in working from anti-oppression, anti-racist, cultural competent, and equity standpoint, stimulously addressing both individual and systematic barriers that impact the experiences of individual clients. She interacts daily at workplaces. We have Ms. Viola Ariek. Ms. Viola Ariek is a social scientist and a gender activist, and currently working with UNFPA as a gender analyst. She's a champion of prevention and response to gender-based violence. Ms. Viola holds Masters of Social Science in Social Development from the University of Cape Town and a Bachelor Arts in Community Development from Daystar University. Therefore, I'll now start our first question. Our first question will go to Honorable Atong Majok.
Yes.
Honorable Atong Majok, do you agree that Honorable Peter Mayen is untouchable and above all, the law in South Sudan? As a human rights lawyer and women activist, what's your take on the issue of Alwell and the fact that justice is being delayed? What legal steps should the family of Alwell take to get justice for her? You're most welcome, Honorable Atong.
Okay, thank you so much, Jacqueline, John, and then the rest of the panelists. And I appreciate Women Intellectuals Forum for giving me another chance to give my part of being a lawyer, practicing, and then going through a lot of these issues. First of all, there is nobody above the law in South Sudan, regardless of who that person is, including our president, because that's what the law says. And then the constitution is above everybody. So Honorable Peter Mayen will never be above the law, and the law will never compromise if he is brought to books. As a human rights activist or human rights lawyer, on the issue of Alwell, I think justice delayed is justice denied, because if you don't give that justice at the right time, that is a justice that has been denied to a person who needs it, and in this case is Alwell, who is not getting the justice at the right time. But again, it depends on Alwell, the victim herself, and on the family that Alwell comes from, because it's the family that decides whether they want to continue to the court or not, whether they want that case solved or not. It is also Alwell that is going through issues, through violence, and in this case, it's more than being just violence, but it is even attempting to kill someone. Because if you take a knife and you are trying to stab someone, that means you want to harm them. And when I imagine, I'm just imagining that the knife was actually meant to stab her, maybe on the stomach, maybe on the heart, maybe on somewhere, next to the kidneys or so on. But then she used her hand to protect herself, and that's why she was not stabbed somewhere where she can be harmed terribly. But it is her to go to the court, to the police station and say that I am going through 1, 2, 3, 4. So if Alwell is being also intimidated, for example, that if you do this or if you go do this, this is what will happen to you, considering the fact that she might be young, not to, not to know that this, if I do this, this will help me this way. Maybe she's being intimidated. We don't know, because up to now she has not opened any case against Mayen, and that's why maybe Mayen is actually moving, because in the law, in the law of South Sudan, if a minister, or let's say an MP, commits a crime, you can easily waive their immune. You can easily take away the immunity, and they go through the processes of law. If it is not done by the parliament, the Ministry of Justice, if you go with the proof that this is happening and this is the person who did 1, 2, 3, the Ministry of Justice will look into the case and see whether this case really needs to go to the court, and then the case, the immunity will be definitely waived, regardless of who that person is, and it will be easily taken to the court. So if this is not happening, then it is going to be very difficult for Aluel to get justice, because if you don't have all the processes followed, the right way, it will be very difficult for her to get justice. And that's why I'm saying justice delayed is justice denied, because regardless of who is delaying that process, that person is denying Aluel justice. Some people are talking about, because you can see the social media, about her going back to her house, about her going back with the husband, claiming that they have solved the problem, although we don't know the authenticity of the video, whether it is a new video or old video. The fact remains that Mayen has committed a crime, and that is attempting to kill Aluel, because nobody is allowed to kill someone because they are married to them, or nobody, even your own kid, you are not allowed to kill them. Definitely the government will sue you. If nobody is suing you because you are the father, the government will sue you. So the fact that this is Aluel's husband does not deny her from getting justice. So simply, this is what I will say about the case. And the legal step that the family of Aluel should take is to go to the police station, open a case. Let them have a case, regardless of where Aluel is. Open a case and say, these are the facts that happened. The lady ran away, and she have a witness, because she had the bodyguard who was then later on checked by Mayen Till, where he fall down and maybe he broke his arm. This is what I am hearing. I'm not sure about whether that is true or not. She can follow the process. The family can follow the process of opening a case against Mayen, because they are the only people who can do that now, especially her father. If Aluel is not able to do that, the father can do that on behalf of Aluel. Then the rest of the processes will be another issue. Hello.
Thank you so much, Honorable Atong, for giving your deliberate response to this question. I'd like to recognize and welcome Honorable Dr. Wode for joining the panel. You're most welcome, Honorable. And Honorable Stella, you're most welcome. My next question will go straight away to Dr. Woda. Dr. Woda, what's your take on that, on the specific issue that has been discussed by Honorable Atong? What's your take, and do you think the culture of impunity is protecting Honorable Peter Mayen? And as a lawmaker in East Africa, representing South Sudan, do you think this is a good reputation for South Sudan? What are the recommendations that you can give regarding this case?
First of all, I want to thank all the ladies, and I want to thank the forum for really spotting the light on this very important issue. And sorry that I've connected a little bit late, but I've got what Honorable Atong was saying. And of course, as a South Sudanese, no one can say that they didn't hear that this incident, which is, of course, is not acceptable in front of the law, and it's not acceptable for us as women of South Sudan, because whoever is hurt is a lady, and whoever is going through injustice is also a lady, regardless of who is the one who has committed that crime. The other thing is that for me, because there are steps which took place, I don't think that there is really that impunity, because I've followed this case and I know that the accuser, the abuser, has went through disciplinary measures from his party, because as a government, there are some process and procedures which are to be done, and the person belonged to a party. I think the party took disciplinary measures, and they have took very, very, very hard measures against him. And now I've followed how the women activists, led by Councillor Jacqueline Nasiwa, whom I really respect very well. I've worked with her before, and I know how she's so passionate about women issues. They went to the Minister of Gender, who is my colleague also, and I know that she is so passionate, and they will deal with this wisely. And we are so lucky that we have a vice president who is a woman, and who is a mother, and who is a grandmother, and who is a wife. She was a wife. Our vice president, Honorable Rebecca, I met her in a little bit of long interview, because I've written a book about the late Dr. John Garang. And one of the issues she told me, because I wanted to know about Dr. John Garang as a husband, she told me that when she got married to him, she feared two things: that he shouldn't marry on her, and he shouldn't beat her, because by that time this was some of the cultural norms which were there in South Sudan. Because but it happened that he didn't touch her, so she's one of the women from that time. Imagine, she got married when she was around 17, but she was concerned about not to be abused. So I'm very sure that the decision will be made, and it will be made wisely. But the other controversial thing is what happened. Like, I was talking to Jacqueline, and I asked her, was there a case filed from the victim? But there was no case. There was no case from the family, which, as there are lawyers here in this debate, and they know that if even if you see a person being raped, or a person being robbed also, and they don't open their mouths and they don't say something, a lawyer cannot come and step in. Maybe a police, because he's somebody who can enforce the law, but somebody to talk on your behalf cannot if you don't talk. So from this, what is my take from this is that we are not aware. Some of us are not aware of their rights. Some of us are not aware that the Constitution of South Sudan and the treaties and the convention which South Sudan has signed, they protect us as women. And the law is very clear. But there is lack of awareness. There is also fear. So my recommendation is that it's an eye-opener. People will be fighting, but also let's raise the awareness of the people who are being victimized, that they have the right to talk, and they have the right to air their voice. And also from this juncture, I want also to encourage the women to help each other, because you might know somebody who's going through this. Is maybe Aluel is somebody who is known, her husband is known, but there are many who are going through this, and they're going through it silently. So this is it's like an eye opener, and people should be open about this, because it's not a stigma. You didn't do something, it's not your fault. Somebody is abusing you. Maybe the problem is with them. And I will not take much of your time, but it's a passionate topic, and it's really very emotional when you see women are still in this century going through this, and also from people who you don't expect that they can do such an act. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ude, for giving really good recommendations, and then also sharing your opinion on this very specific topic. The key things that we have to put forward. There's a need to create more awareness. Women need to know their rights. Women need to know that there are laws that exist that actually protect them. Just picking up direct from that, I would like to go straight to Regina. Miss Regina Usola, what policies are in place in South Sudan that protect the women of South Sudan against gender-based violence? And are those policies being implemented? Does the ministry have any place for survivors of GBV?
I think she's not in the panel.
Thank you, Stella. Just drawing from what the women-led organization or the women of South Sudan, the step that they took to ensure that they raise awareness about the critical issues of GBV in South Sudan. I'd like to, ask you in the next question, as a registered social worker in Canada, can you tell us about gender-based violence, stories that you have seen or heard among South Sudanese in diasporas? Do the men get away with it? What has made the South Sudanese men in diasporas to adhere to the rules? Do you think that most South Sudanese homes are broken because of GBV? Stella?
Thank you for having me in the panel once again. So I'm sorry I got in late, I was having technical issues. But gender-based violence is a universal issue. And I think in Canada, 70% of gender-based violence go unrecorded or unreported. And with that in mind, so I think 3 weeks ago, someone called me and they were asking, there was a woman who was being abused by their partner. They're from Sudan, the northern part of Sudan, but because they know that I do this kind of work, they approached me and they wanted me to support this woman. Normally, when someone calls, you ask them whether they want to leave or they want to stay in the relationship. This woman, I tried to call her, but she was not picking up the phone. The phone was off. So 1 hour later, we checked in with her again. She had called the police. In Canada, when you call the police on a domestic violence issue, if the woman is refusing to press charges, the police has the right to press charges. So in this case, the police pressed charges. The man was taken out of the home. But then we also have, in such a situation, the woman has to be taken to a shelter to be protected from the husband. This husband had beaten her. She was pregnant. He was threatening to send her back home. And at the same time, she had been told that because she was not working, the kids were going to be taken away and given to the man, which is not right, because normally when the violent partner cannot be given the kids. So this woman did not have a lot of information. But then 2 days down the line, they went to court, but the woman refused to go back to the shelter. She said she was going back with the husband. She cannot raise a kid in social housing because we have that option too. If you go into the shelter, normally they get priority, and within 3 months they can access housing that's low income. So this woman has gone back to the husband. And in this sense, she even told the person that called me that if she wants, why doesn't she go to the shelter by herself? Because this very woman is also dealing with the same issues that she was dealing with, right? So this woman has never called police, and they've been sharing these stories with each other. So she didn't see any need. And because she's been threatened that she's going to be sent back home, and she's never used public transport. So at that point, she was helpless, right? So she had to go back. Another incident is, I think within the province I live in right now, there was an incident that ended up in fatal. The person died. So this woman was seen in the community. She was coming in the community with bruises, and that's South Sudanese community. And everyone saw it, and no one ever asked her what she was going through. So it shows how, women are dealing with domestic violence within their homes, but people don't have the courage to even start having this conversation. And I think 1 month ago, in the same city that I live in, there was someone that stabbed the wife to death. They are from the Darfur side. So I think it's something that had been ongoing for a long time. And broad daylight, this man came with a knife, and this woman died in broad daylight. And he was also looking to kill his kids, but they ran away, and one of them ended up in the hospital. So those are some of the issues that I've experienced. And then in terms of whether men get away or not, so as I've said before, 70% of domestic cases go unreported. So even though the legislation states that the police can press charges, normally when the police does that, the women go, and because they've been depending on these men for too long, and especially if they are new immigrants in this country, and the men have been supporting them, and the men have not exposed them to what's out there, then they don't know what else to do. So in this sense, they end up staying in these domestic situations without reporting them. And another issue is most women, like, so do South Sudanese men adhere to rules? I think in this country we say, people always joke that it's women first, and then dogs, and then men after the dogs, right? So women's rights are upheld to that standards, that people know that when you try to abuse a woman, then you have to face the repercussions. So I think the fear of also getting a criminal record, because domestic violence is criminalized in this country, right? So once some women follow through the process, and when that happens, then they have to go through a court case. And if they're charged, then it becomes, you have a criminal background, and you might not get a job, and you might not survive in this country. Another issue is, yeah, so I've forgotten some of the questions. I don't know if I answered all the questions. There are too much. Is there anything that I've left out?
We'll get back to you with a follow-up question. So this is really very nice, and thanks for sharing your experiences and just bringing in the situation in Canada, and how South Sudanese women community or men are adhering to the laws in the country to actually protect women and girls' rights. So I see Miss Regina have just joined us. Oh, she has dropped off again. I will go straight now to Miss Viola Ariek to ask the next question. Viola, can you kindly Miss Viola, the next question goes to you.
Okay.
May you kindly define GBV in the context of South Sudan? Why do you think most men are resisting the fact that GBV is a crime? And GBV family affairs, why and why not?
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. I just want to note first, before I speak in this panel, that I will be speaking first as a survivor of gender-based violence myself, and I'll be speaking also as an activist on issues of gender-based violence in terms of prevention and response. So for me, it's not just about the theoretical aspect of it, but when I speak as having sat in one of the hottest situations that women face in this inhumane world. So just to begin with, gender-based violence is an umbrella of different terms, as you have defined before. It includes acts of physical violence, sexual violence, and suffering that threatens one's life. It can be done by an individual, or it can be done by a group of people, and it deprives the survivor the liberty. And this act can occur in public or private spaces. Of course, we have dwelled a lot on issues of domestic violence, which they also term as intimate partner, and these are violence are inflicted by somebody who, a husband or a girl or a boyfriend or a former ex-husband or a former ex-boyfriend, people who are in very close relationship with the survivor. Now, on your question whether gender-based violence is a crime or not, is that one thing that we have to really underscore is that our laws are very, very clear in South Sudan, that gender-based violence is a crime. It's not a family issue, because if the survivor, as we can see, and from what other panelists have talked about, GBV can kill, especially domestic violence. It can kill, it can harm, it can leave damages beyond repair, and therefore it has become a crime. It's not just a family issue as being stated in South Sudan. Why are men resisting this? I would say that the issue of gender equality and gender roles are very culturally driven in South Sudan. So they are very complex, I must say, Jacqueline. They differ across South Sudan, from urban to rural areas and between different tribes. So what happened in Dinka culture is not the same that happened in Bari. And historically, just to note that women in South Sudan had powers in society, has been really deprived and powerless in the society more than men. And as you know, of course, many of our cultures are driven from a patriarchal society, and therefore the structure where a husband holds the primary authority and leadership and earns the income, So in this kind of settings, men are seen to be, to be the decision makers, to be the power holders, and as compared to the modern society and to our modern laws where women and men have been given equal rights. So basically this is a bit, and just to go further, is that while women and girls traditionally carry the burden of taking care of household and other primary caregivers, they have primary responsibility to cooking. So those are women who are defined to be cooking, to fetch firewood and take care of children. And of course, right now these things are changing. So it's gonna be a conflict between the modern society where South Sudan is leading, a society that recognizes gender equality, a society that believes in balancing the roles between women and men, versus the traditional society where much of the household were done by men, by women, leaving men with other subscribed traditional roles. Now, GBV, and I have to say it here, GBV is not a family affair. It is a crime. It is punishable by law, as Honorable Atong had alluded earlier. And I want to cite some few articles in our laws that really stand out and prohibit gender-based violence. I want to refer our listeners to Article 14 of the Transitional Constitution of South Sudan, of the Interim Constitution of South Sudan 2011, that that the government will establish a system that ensure equality of all its citizens, before the law, stating that all persons are equal before the law and are entitled to the equal protection of the law without discrimination. And this discrimination, of course, is should not be based on race, ethnicity, origin, color, sex, language, religion, and greed or political opinion by birth or local social status. Now, Article 16 also talks about women shall be accorded full and equal dignity of person with men, and that all levels of government shall enact laws that combat harmful customs. And here, of course, when we talk about harmful custom, we are talking about domestic violence, we're talking about issues of child marriage, we're talking about FGM, we're talking about many other things that undermine the dignity of women and girls in the country. Now, other issues that I want to highlight in terms of policies are that our society must know that the government of South Sudan has rectified CEDAW, which is the Convention on Elimination of All Violence Against Women and Girls. This was ratified on the 3rd of September 2014, and by ratifying this, the government has demonstrated a positive measure to ensure political towards gender equality and ensure discrimination against women and girls is eliminated. So yes, we have laws that can clearly protect women and girls, and it's about us to ensure that we know what the law says. The laws, our statutory laws are superior than our customary laws, so let's not always say, oh, but this is what our culture says. The laws are there and they subside any other cultural laws that might have existed. So basically, this is what I will say. I will stop from here and maybe wait for further questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Viola, for really giving more details and then also bringing on board the issue of culture. Culture is, has really denied the women the rights to access some of the services in the country. Culture alone have not, women and girls have been trained and raised in different communities, just like what you've explained, that has continuously contributed to gender-based violence against women and girls in South Sudan. So thanks for really giving your input, deliberation on this specific question. At this point, I'll go straight to Honorable Atom once again. Honorable Atom, what cases of gender-based violence have you come across in South Sudan? And why do you think that cases of GBV are not handled well? Do you think that the culture of impunity is worsening in the fight of GBV in South Sudan?
All right, thank you so much for the chance again, Jacqueline. I have come across a lot of GBV cases in South Sudan. As my sister Viola have mentioned before, GBV can be physical. It can be psychological. It can also be, sexual. Because in our cultures, people believe that if she is married to so and so, then he have full right of having sex with that particular wife, regardless of her being sick, her being annoyed, her being what. That's not the problem, because she's married. That is the concept. That is what our people think. So even a wife can be abused sexually at home. If, for example, there is a fight between the two, they have fought, and she's not happy, she's not willing to have sex, she's not willing to have sex, even if she's married to that man, because she have also the right to say yes or not for that, yes or no, So there are so many cases of GBV that I have come across in South Sudan. There are harassment cases of within maybe a workspace. Then a lady was harassed, or a woman was harassed, or a young girl. Also in schools, a lot of these cases are happening. There are physical cases of or let me say dodomestic violence, where a woman will come having wounds in the body, like we've seen the case of Alwell Missy, who was beaten by her own husband to the extent of stabbing her with a knife. And this should be something very little in the house, because two people fought, and then one person ending up stabbing someone with a knife, for example. It becomes bigger now, because you are abusing your power, you are abusing your age, because she's so younger than you that she cannot fight and maybe carry another thing and beat the husband or so on. So there are so many cases of gender-based violence that are happening in South Sudan. Some of them are not being heard, because the victims will think that I am married to him and he have full right to beat me. Because if she goes and tell the mother that my mom, this man is beating me, before she goes to anyone else, at some point the mother will end up telling her, even your father was also beating me. So it's something normal. So the culture of normalizing domestic violence is leaving a lot of women suffer in silence in their houses. And then one thing that gender-based violence do is to be psychological. When a woman is being beaten by a husband or by a brother, because we don't mean here only in the marriages, even some parents are doing this gender-based violence in their houses. So you will find out the culture of silence is another thing. You don't want to talk about it because you think according to the culture they have right over you. Men have right over the girls or women, regardless of who they are, whether a brother, a sister, a husband, or a father. So the culture of silence is making a lot of women go through psychological issues, and we do not know that it is because of these things that it is affecting them psychologically. Some girls will not be performing at the schools, and we will think they're dumb, and we do not know it is the abuse that they are going through in their families that is not allowing them to grow in school, that is not allowing them to have enough time to think of something that is good for them, is not allowing them to grow, as in learning new things or moving to different places and discovering things, is because psychologically they are told this is how you are supposed to behave, and the men have right over you. So there are so many cases that I cannot mention one by one, but yeah. And why I think these cases of GBV are not being handled well is because the processes are not done well. Like, we have one case in front of us where there was no case open in the first place. There was no case open. And then the right person who is supposed to open a case is the victim, or the victim's family that is supposed to open the case. None of them did it. So here, in this case of Aluel, there's no justice that can be found at the end of the day, because there's no process taken to solve that problem through the court or let's say police. So at some point is because we don't have enough. We are not aware that I can actually go to the police station, open a case, even if I am harassed by the police, because at some point some women are being harassed by the police and they end up going back homes, because you will come and say, my husband beat me, and these are the wounds, and the first question will be, why did your husband beat you, and why are you opening a case against you? We will even beat you. That is the police talking. And at some points they will be like, in Junubin culture, women can be beaten by their husbands and you don't come out talking about this, and if it happened that you are educative and you talk about women's rights and so on, and you are the same person who went and does that, they will be like, this is a feminist. We have seen how the social media is now talking about the feminists and how they have taken the case of Aluel, because people think that they are there to destroy families. So if you are enough educated and so on, and you know your rights, that will be perceived, okay, oh, now she wants to divorce because she wants to be moving in the streets, just the way activists do. And you end up going back home because you have been harassed by the police, because you have been intimidated that they will even beat you. So at some point, not having the right policemen at the police stations is another problem, because they do not know that they are there to give a good directive to help the victim come up with how they can solve this problem. They can even give advice. They can be the first people to give the psychosocial support. Okay, sit down, relax. If she's crying, sit down, relax. Now can you talk? We don't have those trained police. Some of them are there because they have been trained by the UN, especially the UNMS and so on. So now we have gender desk. If you go as a woman, you will go to the gender desk. But is gender desk 24 hours operating? This is another question. It is not. So when you go and the trained person that is supposed to be at the gender desk is not there, you will end up going back home. You you'll end up going back home because no woman will be beaten if she has not done any problem. So lack of having trained police men at the police station is another problem. Issue of not having enough awareness about our rights is another problem. Not being prepared enough that if you go to the police station and you find these problems, then you need to do 1, 2, 3. So I think even as the women lawyers, we have not done enough to make sure that we sensitize our community, we sensitize our women to know how they can go through such cases and how they can handle them, leaving alone the person who is coming to harass me or so on. Then the impunity is worsening the fight against GBV in South Sudan. Yes, actually it does, although it is not an impunity that is given by the law. It is impunity that is given by personalities. You know, it is not the law, because the law is clear. Nobody is above the law. That means if a minister comes, if an MP comes with any problem, easily you can do it through the law because we have the law. So it is not the law, but it is the personalities. And I will also assume that is because of this mindset of that women are supposed to be below men. That if today as a man you help another woman go through certain processes, tomorrow it will be your wife. So they will be like, you don't do this woman like this. If you do them like this, you know, they will be on top of our heads. So you don't give them that chance. You don't give them that enough freedom, thinking that it is through giving them that freedom that they will now, you know, start behaving and start having a lot of rights. And tomorrow is my wife, but tomorrow can be your wife. So don't give women room to go through this thing. So yes, impunity does, but it is not an impunity given by the law. It is impunity given by personalities who do not know actually that it is also another crime.
Wow. Yes. Honestly, the situation of GBV and then impunity, cultural context, and then how it impacts women, and then also in accessing some of the services that are available has to be backed by law. So people need to understand the law. The police, like you mentioned, most women, if they go to police, they will be questioned. You know, why do you report your husband? Making environment even not very conducive for them to be able to open up and speak about GBV cases. So now that takes us then to what are the laws? I'm going to ask the next question to Dr. Warder. Dr. Warder, what laws are in place to protect the women in East Africa against gender-based violence? Are the policies being implemented? And how is South Sudan benefiting from some of these laws? Dr. Warder, can you unmute?
Yes, sorry for that. Thank you very much for the question. Of course, as East Africa we are governed by the Treaty of East Africa. And this is in Article 121. It's really giving out the importance of the women in the bill, that significant factor in the development and building this bloc, because it's an economic bloc. And also the partner state, through this provision of this article, shall, through the appropriate legislative and other measures, ensure that the women are taken care of. First of all, I will not read all the articles because the treaty is in front of me here. It's a law. I can't just, I have to quote it. So like in B, it's talk about that we should abolish all legislation and discourage customs that are discriminatory against women. This is so clear. There should not be any discrimination against the women. In C, it's talk about that we should promote effective education awareness programs aimed at changing negative attitudes towards women, because all the partner states, there are very negative attitudes towards women. Some of them, the other speakers has spoken about them. And also there is an E, which is very relevant to our comment, is that take such other measures that shall eliminate prejudices against women and promote the equality of female gender with that of the male gender in every respect or any aspect. So equality is there. And East Africa community is based on very good fundamentals of good governance, gender equality, and women promotion. So women, because we know that in East Africa, women are more than 60% of the population, and they play very effective roles. I will also go to give the viewers some of the activities and some of the measures which were taken by the Legislative Assembly to promote the gender. And these are as follows. The East Africa community has also, because as lawmakers, we have three roles, which the viewers and listeners should know very well, that we have the roles, the role of legislator, so that we have to legislate laws which are in the benefit of the community, and we have to represent, and we have also to oversight over the executive and oversight over all the wings of the governance. So one of the legislative roles, the East Africa Assembly has legislated. They have a law, ESC law, against the trafficking in person. And this is a bill which was enacted in 2016. And this bill also seeks to provide for a regional legal framework for persons who are being trafficking within the region. And also it has a provision to protect and also give service to the victim of trafficking, and also develop mechanism to counteract trafficking in person in the community, which most of the people who are being trafficking in the community are women. They're being trafficking because of many aspects, like to be for the work, and also sometimes they're being trafficked to be abused in sexual, bad sexual acts. Like we know many of the agent which deal with maids, and then they end up going to many countries. I don't want to mention the names, but when the girls and the women go there, they're surprised that now they're in the sexual or in sex industry against their will, and they're kept against their will. Also, the East Africa community had a bill on the prohibition of female genital mutilation bill, which was enacted in 2016, and it was passed by the East Africa community. And this is one of the violence also which is being practiced on girls and women in the community. And also we have the East African Community Gender and Equality and Development Bill. Also, it was enacted in 2016, and this bill seeks to address the socioeconomic factors of gender-based violence, because sometimes the gender-based violence is even not just physically, psychologically, or even verbally. It can be economically. You can be denied of your rights. You can be, even if you are a working woman, a man or your husband can come and take all your salary, can take your belongings, even if it's a land or gold or any of your possession. This is another form of abuse which is being practiced on women in our community. And this bill is addressing that. And also the East Africa community has a sexual and reproductive health bill, and this bill is being it's ongoing, it's in progress, and this bill seeks a lot of things, among others, to protect children, adolescents, and young persons from sexual abuse and other forms of exploitation, because we know that
children are being exploited. We have problems in our economies, and that's why young girls, young women are being exploited based on this, and sometimes they're being exploited based on their ignorance of their rights, and that things which is being practiced on them is a crime. Recently, I moved a motion which was passed also, and the resolution was passed in the House. Again, the motion is to eradicate child early and forced marriages, because this is one of the things also. The law is there. We have the lawyers in the House with us now. The law is there against it, the Child Act, and we have the Women Rights Act, but it's being practiced. We have the forced marriages. We have even people being detained in the police because they refuse to marry to so-and-so, yet this police is supposed to be the one protecting them. But you go and say, okay, you keep my daughter here without any charges because she's not listening. Magades Makalam, okay? You discipline her, even torture her so that she come to her senses and say, I will marry so-and-so, or I accept. You see, this is being practiced. Will not say it's not there, because we have the statistic. Any law, any motion we moved in our assembly, you do a lot of research. I have the data. There is no time to display them, but these are based on facts and real things. The other question which you asked me is, how can South Sudan benefit? Are these policies being, these laws implemented? Unfortunately, let me say and be frank, unfortunately, we have very good laws that are set very well. Any lawyer, any lawmaker will say, wow. But practice-wise, we tend to go to what? To the customary norms, to the culture. Let's do this like this. And then this thing supersede the national and the regional laws. And these bills which I've spoken about in the East Africa Legislative Assembly, they have been passed by the Assembly, but they are not assented to by the head of the states. Why? Because as we said, most of the decision makers mostly are men. They see priorities in other things. And also sometimes it's the lack of awareness and the importance of the issue. So as women parliamentarians, as women politicians, we have to lobby, we have to raise awareness, we have to spotlight, we have really to talk, and we have to also encourage and advocate to position women leaders who can be in decision-making positions so that they see that this is a very important thing more than another thing. How South Sudan can benefit from these laws? Of course, South Sudan is part of a region, of this region. And all the laws which are passed by East Africa Assembly, because the regional laws, the laws of the national laws, except the Constitution. So these laws, whenever we pass, even when we pass a resolution like this motion, which I've passed this June about eradication of the early child and forced marriages, they will be brought to the clerk of our assembly. So our parliamentarians will be informed that the East Africa community has this resolution. They have passed these laws. The laws will be assented by the head of the state, and they will be given to the judiciary to be laws for all the 6 partner states. So this is how we can benefit from it. But the most important for me as a lawmaker, yes, I can legislate, but the most important thing is to oversight that these laws are being implemented. Because for me, I legislate. There are other institutions which will be implementing these laws. So if these institutions are not made aware of those laws and they're not convinced of them, they will not implement them. If they are not oversight, like they are not being supervised to implement them, they will not implement them, because they will rather go with what they're used to, the customary and the cultural norms. So this is, I think, just my take on your question. Thanks.
Thank you so much once again, Dr. Wode.
you know, it's so weird. I mean, I have to say weird because we have so many policies that are set in place to protect and promote the rights of women, you know, to put the perpetrator into count book. And some of these laws are there, and they are just on the table, or they are in the computer, soft copy. No one is implementing them, unfortunately. So yes, and of course that's still a responsibility that as women women advocate, we need to continue to create awareness about some of the existing laws that actually in place that protect and promotes our rights, so that we are able to, you know, stand firm and confront some of the issues that are impacting us as women activists and women in South Sudan, but also women at the region and women in diasporas. So thank you once again, Dr. Wode, for really sharing your experiences, and then also as a MP at the East African, you know, legislature. So this is something that really contributes a lot to this kind of conversation, for people to learn that we have beautiful laws in place, but they are not really implementing them. So at this point, I'll go once again to Stella. My next question goes to Stella. Stella, what are the available services there for the survivors of GBV in Canada? Kindly give us the best practices and how they can be replicated in South Sudan.
Thank you, Jacqueline. So one of the resources that we have in Canada is the Assaulted Women's Helpline. And this is normally available for women who, most of the time, women are not ready to leave these relationships. So it gives them an opportunity to call someone and get counseling on the phone. And it's also an opportunity for the people on the other side of the phone to prepare them in case they are ready to leave, by giving them safety plans on how to take care of their kids, what to do in case the assault is happening, and eventually maybe use the safety plan when they are ready to leave. Another resource is the fact that police are mandated to press charges. So when a woman calls them in a domestic incident, they cannot leave without taking the man away or pressing the charges. So the burden becomes on the woman to either continue with the process or not. And then another factor is that when these women decide to go on with the court process, normally they have court support system. Some women are not ready to come into the courts and even present themselves or talk about these issues because of stigma. So normally they have different agencies that work together with the courts, and they assist these women through the process and preparing them on how to report these issues when they are doing the court process. And then another issue that's been was mandated by the Beijing conference is that all the public figures need to be trained on how to address these issues. For example, if a woman walks into a hospital today and they have bruises all over their body, the nurse is mandated to do a domestic violence assessment and make sure that this woman is indeed not living with a domestic violence situation. And if there are kids involved in that process, they are mandated to call the Child Protective Services to come and take these children from this family. So even the police, they have different domestic violence departments where when women go in, they must work with the women police who are going to support them in this whole process without stigmatizing them. Another factor is we have domestic violence shelters. When a woman, because sometimes women are ready to leave, but they don't have an option or a place where they can go to. So these shelters are normally in undisclosed places where women are taken and supported until they're able to find housing. And we have social housing in Canada. And this helps in a sense that when some women don't have jobs and they're normally subsidized, so women are able to be given these priority housings within 3 months, and they can move on with their livelihood. And if they need, they normally also have, if they can work, they have support in terms of getting jobs so they can get back to their feet. And practices on how it can be replicated. I think most important things that some of us have mentioned here is the education aspect. I think people need to be educated on the consequences of domestic violence, because some people don't understand that it can kill sometimes, right? And it has also become a public health issue. Sometimes you spend too much money treating a woman who has been abused, because it's emotional, it's psychological, and it's physical at the same time. So a lot of money, especially I think in Canada, a lot of money gets spent in treating these women, because once an incident takes place, then you have to start looking for all these resources to make sure that they are okay. But if it can be prevented through education, then maybe the mass need to be educated. I also think that the legislators needs to bring up these issues, given that it's already in the Constitution. I think they need to bank on that and keep talking about it so it can be implemented, not just having it written in the institution. And then change does not only happen at macro level. I think we have hospitals, we have social workers, and we also have community agencies in South Sudan that are working with these women. So they need to be able to appropriately assess these women, because sometimes someone walks into your office, and if you don't assess whether they're dealing with domestic violence, they might not even talk about it, right? But through an assessment, maybe you can have them start having this conversation, and even though they're not ready to leave, you can empower them within these settings that they're living. So maybe one day they can know that they have these other choices, and then live and find a place to, without thinking of what the society would say. But if we don't educate them, if we don't support them, if we stigmatize them, or if we re-traumatize them when they come to the offices, then we are not solving any situation. And then we also have to support women who have decided to leave domestic violence situations. If they don't have a safe place to go to, then it means that they're going to go back to these abusive situations. So we need to try and work around. It needs money, but then sometimes it doesn't have to be a big house. You can even start by saving 5 women at a time, right? And then when it's working, then a lot of these can be replicated within the community. Another issue is gender-based violence need to be criminalized. Even though it's written in the Constitution, it's not being followed, because right now we have a situation at hand and the person does not really have a choice, or they don't know what they need to do, or because they were married to a prominent person, then they care more about the reputation of this person than how much their livelihood is at stake. So maybe we need to be able to provide options and places where these people can go to and get safety. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks once again, Stella, for that. At this point, I see that Regina have just joined us. Oh, she has gone off again. Okay, I'll go straight again with my next question to Viola. Viola, what are some of the initiatives that have been put in place by UN agencies or donor, government, and partners to reduce or eliminate all sorts of violence against women and girls in South Sudan?
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. It's unfortunate Mama Regina is not here, but I will be speaking on what the UN has been doing in supporting the government to prevent and respond to gender-based violence in South Sudan. I just want to let you know that the UN is leading a joint program on prevention and response to gender-based violence in South Sudan. It was developed in 2017 and launched in 2018. And since then, a number of parameters have been achieved. I know it's like a drop in the ocean, but it's a progress that is worth acknowledging. So they're leading a joint program under the leadership of Ministry of Gender, but are the different UN agencies coming together, being supported by notable donors like Canada, Norway, Sweden, Netherlands, and Swiss Development Corporation. So a number of donors are contributing to the implementation of the joint program on prevention and response to GBV. So what does this program entails? It has 4 pillars. The first pillar is on health and psychosocial support, which UNFPA is leading. The second one is on protection and security sector, strengthened to respond to GBV, is being led by UN Women. And then the third pillar is on access to justice, ensure supportive legal and policy environment to addressing gender-based violence, and is being supported by UNDP. Now, the fourth pillar is being led by UNICEF and is on community engagement and social norms in South Sudan. Take action to prevent gender-based violence and positive social norms. Now, we all know, and I think I'm happy that the social worker has shared her experience in Canada. We know very well that some of these things takes time to be observed by women. We have seen from practical experience that women comes to work with bruises and they will always say, oh, maybe something happened. You know, they will not want to openly talk about such issues. So GBV is a very, very sensitive issue. It requires a multi-sectoral approach. You can't just say you're going to do health and leave legal, or do health and leave protection. And I'm happy she talks about the GBV shelters, and I will allude into it briefly in my talking points. Now, after it was launched in 2018, I just want to acknowledge key achievables that the joint program has done, and this is through the effort of the UN as an entity supporting the government of South Sudan. Now, there's been a developed manual on investigation and prosecution of GBV cases. They've also been strengthening the capacity of duty bearers on the management and response. So a number of police have been trained. The SPU, the Special Protection Units, have been established in different stations, and they've been trained by UNDP. Whether they are working or not is something that we can continue to monitor. And then they've also been continuous awareness and advocacy raising to encourage positive social norms that really prevent GBV. That so far, since 2017 November, UNFPA and Ministry of Health and Ministry of Gender have established 12 one-stop centers to provide integrated GBV services in major health facilities. Now, these one-stop centers are stationed in a state referral hospital, and they are providing 4 main GBV services. They are providing health, they are providing psychosocial support, they are providing legal services, and they are providing referral. Now, and through the joint program also, there has been a draft anti-GBV bill which was developed in partnership between the Ministry of Gender and the Ministry of Justice. Again, I must emphasize that justice for the survivors of GBV is a key, is the only way that we can send a signal to the public to say, look, gender-based violence is a crime and not a family matter. So we have to really enforce and strengthen our laws which prohibit gender-based violence. So the draft is still in draft form. We are very optimistic that once the parliament starts the sessions, that this is one of the legislation that will be prioritized. Now, I just want to talk about, in terms of GBV services in general, we have about 3 key services that are being offered in South Sudan. One is the prevention services. Again, we know very well if we have to end GBV, we have to put our emphasis on preventing it from happening. We need to close the tap. We need to ensure that our people understand what are the consequences of GBV, what it does to the mother, what it does to the family, what it does to the children who are growing up from abusive environment. The second component is the responding. So we know as much as we're going to put efforts in preventing gender-based violence from happening, it is still going to happen. It is happening in countries, in the developed countries like Canada. It is happening in developed countries like in the US. So it is still going to happen in South Sudan. And therefore, we must be ready as a country that when a gender-based violence has happened, the survivors are able to access the life services that they need at that particular point. So what are we talking about? We're talking about clinical management of rape for survivors of GBV. We're talking about psychosocial support, really, to really encourage the survivor that not all is lost. She can still come out of it, and she can still be strong, and she can still make her life beyond what she has gone through. Again, we need to really work on the legal service provision. We need to emphasize on having legal pro bonos. What are our women and female lawyers doing there to support survivors of GBV? Because that's where they actually can also not afford it. Because if we're talking about not all women in South Sudan are working, legal fees are very expensive. And I'm happy that Atong is here. We really need to strengthen supporting our survivors to be able to access legal services. Now, the third component is risk mitigation. So what are we doing in South Sudan? We can see risk happening. So when there is practically maybe when there is when we know that there's going to be a community conflict happening somewhere in a particular community, what are we doing to mitigate and to protect women and girls from being sexually abused, or from being harassed, or from being forced marriage, because we have seen forced marriage arising? Or what are we doing in terms of COVID-19? We saw COVID-19 coming in. We need to also ensure that what is COVID-19 going to do to our children, to our adolescent girls? We've seen the pregnancy has gone on a rise. What are we doing to prevent it from escalating further? So these are three things that are being done in South Sudan. Now, in terms of available services, again, quickly I'll run through. Through the one-stop centers, I want to let the viewers know that through the one-stop centers, there will be a physical examination done by a lawyer, by a doctor. Usually these are Ministry of Health trained doctors, just basically to collect forensic evidence. So in case of physical violence that happened to you, you need to report it to the doctor, so that the doctor can actually detect where the bruises are and be able to treat them, to stop bleeding if you are bleeding. And therefore, those evidence can be used by the lawyer to actually go and open the case and help you access justice. What is also being done through those one-stop centers is the prevention of HIV, is the prevention of STIs, and prevention of unwanted pregnancy. You know, rape also can result into a number of health consequences. We recently heard of a mother who really slaughtered her own child because of she claimed that she was raped, and therefore she didn't want. If that particular mother would have gone to a health facility, the doctor would have prevented her to conceive out of rape. So we need to report such kind of cases, so that the mother can get administered emergency contraceptives, can get psychosocial support, and can get other legal support that are happening. Now, I remember my colleague from one of the panelists who's joining us from Canada talked about safe houses. This is one of the biggest gaps we have in South Sudan. But the good news is we actually have recently established one safe house in WOW. It is being under the management of the Ministry of Gender in WOW, and being supported by one of our partners, Nile Hope. Now, this is where we have really been knocking doors with the donor. We really need a number of safe houses to be able to support survivors who are fleeing their abusive houses, or who are fleeing because they are being forced for child marriage. So far, I have to say that we only have 2 safe houses in the country. We have one in Torit, and we have one in WOW. These are not enough. We really need to really invest in safe house. They could be life-saving. A woman can flee the house and save her life if she knows she's going to have a place to shelter for that particular night. So basically, those are a few things I could say. How can women in South Sudan access these services? As I mentioned earlier on, the services are spread across the country, all over South Sudan. And just for you, if you don't know where the one-stop centers are in your particular state, you can easily get the information by dialing the GVV helpline. We have 2 GVV helplines so far. One is 662, which is being managed by Lulu Care, and the other one is 623, being managed by Crown the Woman. They will be able to direct you to the nearest health facility to your location. And then they can also provide for you basic psychosocial support through the phone. I think this is where I will stop, Jacqueline. If you need any further clarification, I will be here to respond. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, Viola. Just drawing up from some of the key points that has come up to do with legal services as one of the challenges that are, affecting GBV survivors. So I would like to throw the next question to Honorable Atong right away. Honorable Atong, what free legal services are there for the survivors of GBV in South Sudan? Who can? How can women access justice without being subject to humiliation?
Okay, thank you so much for this question. I think we have we only have maybe 2 legal services that we can do, and that is representing the victims in the courts, and then maybe giving legal advices on how women can access justice when they go through this kind of GBV cases. So all these services are available, given by different women organizations, including the Bar Association, South Sudan Bar Association also provide legal aid or pro bono cases where someone will not have to pay anything, but then that particular lawyer will take care of that case and proceed. And as mentioned earlier by Viola Riak, she's right. Is not easy. Representation of clients in the court, it's a lot of money. Is not less than $1,000, or is not less than $1,000. So you count it from 1,000 and above. So not everybody will be in a position to pay. And then the National Alliance of Women Lawyers does provide legal services for free, and that is by saying pro bono cases. The Women Advocates of South Sudan also does. There is FIDA organization, Federation of Women Lawyers, also does. And then the Bar Association also does the same. So there are also individuals who do. I am a member of National Alliance of Women Lawyers, a member of Women Advocates. I can do it through any of these 2 organizations, and I am soon becoming a member of Federation of Women Lawyers. So I can do it through any of these organizations or under my own law firm, that is Bride Attorneys. I do provide legal services, free legal services, for survivors of GBV or any other cases that are really willing to go through the process of the court, and they do not have someone to represent them. So the available legal services are the advices on how you can go about it. We provide awareness, and then maybe presentation in the court. So how can women access justice without being subjected to humiliation? Is, of course, if we have managed to have an educated society, an educated community where now there is awareness around the areas of gender-based violence. If we manage to tell the community that gender-based violence is a crime, if you beat your wife is a crime, if you harm them is a crime, if it is psychological or physical or whatever, and maybe more especially the domestic violence. So if we take it out of the people's heads that it is a crime, it is not a taboo, it is not what is being practiced, and you don't say this is in our cultures, because in our cultures women can be beaten. At some point you will find people telling you that women themselves will be looking for a husband to beat them. I have heard this story several times, and I'm sure some of you have heard that story too, that a woman will be like, women in the area will be like, your husband does not beat you, wow, he doesn't love you. If he really loves you, he will beat you. I have heard this story several times, and I was wondering, how will I want someone to slap me? How will I want someone, to hit me in the head, or maybe give me a sign here that I was beaten with this beautiful face and I see a lot of wounds, or I lose my teeth? Definitely nobody will accept it. So I'm like, no woman will want to be beaten, ya jama. So they will say this is in our cultures, and there is that story. They said it is a Dinka woman who did all the bad things. They said in the culture of Dinka that if a woman wants you to beat them, or you do the worst thing as a villager, is let the calf mabarif do what. I mean, there's that story. So they say the woman was trying to let the husband beat her because he thought the husband do not love her. So she did a lot of different bad things, and the husband did not beat her. So what she did was to kill the calf, a small one that the husband loves so much. So they said after that the husband beat her thoroughly. So she was crying she was screaming in a very high volume, so that the neighbors can hear she was beaten. And then the next day she was like, yeah, now my husband beat me, so he loves me. I'm very sure this is a story that was put together by someone who wants the women to believe that it is being beaten means love, and this is not true. Even your own child, if you beat your own child and give them an hour, they will not want to talk to you because they don't like it. They don't like it. So if that culture is eliminated, that's when it will be very easy for women to get justice without being humiliated, is when we change our mindset, is when our justice system is changed, is when our laws are implemented as they are supposed to be implemented. And if you don't implement them the way you should, you have to be punished for that, even if you are a law enforcement agency. So you will be, because you have not done it according to how you do it, this is the punishment. That's when we will really be going through this without humiliation. And I think it is not very difficult. Yes, it might take time, but I'm sure things will change. Because if a father will not like his daughter beaten to death, I'm sure he will not do the same to the wife. Or if all the fathers refuse that, you come to your father running and say, I was beaten, then your father goes and asks the husband, when I gave you my daughter, was not for you to go and kill. Until then. Because now with our families, when you come running to your family that my husband is beating me or something, they'll be like, okay, so you want us to do what now? You are married. Go back to your husband. Go back to your house. Is until then when things will change. There is a question I really want to pick here. Can I? On the comments.
Yes, sure. Please go ahead.
Someone called Dominic Dow was asking, Honorable Atong, why would you want Parliament to discuss Mayen's family affairs? Nobody wanted the Parliament to discuss Mayen family affairs. Mayen is a public figure, so he is accountable to the public, and the public will not go anywhere unless to the Parliament, because the Parliament is our representative. Members of Parliament are our representative, and they should be the one to discuss our issues if things are not going wrong, because they are there representing us in the Parliament, regardless of that Parliament being an appointed Parliament or elected Parliament. Nobody wants to discuss his family affairs. The women who came out were talking about the fact that he wanted to kill his wife. It is not beating the wife, because he went to the extent of trying to step the wife with a knife, so that he wants to kill. Nobody will discuss anybody's affairs in a parliament or somewhere else. What was needed is for Mayen to behave as a public figure, Mayen to behave as a responsible minister of humanitarian affairs, not any other ministry. Is humanitarian affairs. So that's the question I wanted to answer, and I think I have answered all the questions you have thrown back to me. Unless if I have forgotten something, I am ready to pick it, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much once again, Honorable Atom. So it's honestly, when you look at issues of legal services in South Sudan, and given the fact that so many women, especially living at the grassroots, the state level, do not even have access to law. And then the few services that are legal services that are available cannot easily be accessed by these women. So this is still one of the biggest challenges that the government need to decentralize some of the courts in place, so that survivors of GBV at the state level, at the grassroots level, can have access to taking the case through court, and then the perpetrator is put into accountable. So these are some of the things that are the gap that are there. Allow me once again to move straight to Honorable Dr. Wode. So, Honorable, what role can the women of parliamentarian, women politicians play in combating all sorts of violence against women and girls in South Sudan?
Jackie, thank you very much for this very important question. And let me just bear with me to take you through the laws and the provisions which are there in South Sudan, so that when we talk on informed view. At the national level of our constitution, there is a lot of provision and number of grantees which are against the form of physical violence, and all acts of physical violence are criminal acts, which are punishable under the criminal courts of law of this country, which is South Sudan. So everyone should know that any act of violence is being criminalized, and it has a punishment in the law of South Sudan. And let me get some piece of legislations so that the viewers and the listeners knows what we have in South Sudan. We have the provision of the Transitional Constitution, which was adopted in 2011 and amended in 2013. And we have such articles like Article 11 on the rights of life, dignity, and integrity of the person. We have Section 15, which is against forced marriage, Section 40 on the protection from moral and physical abuse and abandonment. We have the standard operating procedure for gender-based violence prevention, which is a response in South Sudan. This one was done in 2014. And I find it very good, really, because it was developed through consultative process with input from various government institutions, UN agencies, international and state level. This document is setting very clear steps and system, role and response for all institutions involved in prevention and protection and response to the gender-based violence in South Sudan. So it gives us a direction. And I want it really very much, Madam Regina from the Minister of Gender to be here, so that she really emphasize on these things, because I'm very sure that she could have highlighted these procedures and these steps which are there in South Sudan, so that we know that we have the provision. The other thing is National Action Plan for implementation of the United Security Council response, which all the women knows, the 1325, on women participation in all level of decision making to address the gender aspect, is specifically security needs in South Sudan. We have the provision of the penal codes, such as Section 259, which prohibits female genital mutilation, Section 273, which are punitive actions for kidnapping or abducting a woman to compel her to marriage, which is happening. It is happening. People are being stolen or abducted to get married. They're being raped so that you what? You silence them because you will not come out. The relative even will say, this is now a stigma. You are taken, you are being raped. Okay, be a what? Be a wife of that person. And imagine a girl or a woman living with that pain, and then you have to respect and live the whole life with that person who abducted you, raped you, maybe in front of some other people, because sometimes it's not only one person doing this act, is being helped or assisted by some people. Okay, we have the provision of the Child Act, such as Section 23, rights to protect from marriage and other negative, harmful cultural and social practices. And in South Sudan, when I've done the research I've done to move the motion against eradication of the early and forced child marriages, South Sudan and Tanzania were the one doing very bad among the 6 partner states, because even in Tanzania, the constitution was having 15 years for a girl to marry and then 18 years for the boy to marry. That was in their constitution. The government didn't change it. Who changed it is the women activists who changed it, and then they elevated that the age of the girl to be 18 for the marriage, and the boy is 21. So these things women are doing, women parliamentarian, you can see that they can be like small steps, but at the end of the day, because it's only 2019 when the constitution of Tanzania was changed, that the age limit for the girl marriage should be 18. That's the legal one, because they're still practicing. And then for the boy is 21. We have also the Articles 10 of the Southern Sudan Police Service Regulation in 2010. It's the Southern Sudan, because that was 2010, before our independence, the Code of Conduct on Protection of the Survivor of Sexual Violence, Sexual Assault, and Sexual Exploitation. So all this, we have the South Sudan also committed to the UN Declaration on Elimination of Violence Against Women. When South Sudan committed to that, it's like honoring everything in it. South Sudan ratified the Protocol of African Charter on Human Rights and People Rights on the Right of Women in Africa in 2000. That charter was in 2003, which is the Maputo Protocol. And by that, it made a commitment to implement the provision. So as lawmakers, as women, as people in decision making position, we should know that we have ratified this, we have those laws, they have to be implemented, and they have to be made aware. Aware to who? To the decision makers, to the citizens, to the victims, to those who are abusing, so that when you abuse, you know that there is a law. It is not just a jungle for you to do whatever you want to do. Let's come to the question, what can women parliamentarian and politician do? First of all, and I'm still on it, raise awareness to the public and to those even in decision-making position and to their counterpart, to the parliamentarian. Like now we have new members in the parliament, they have to be inducted. Because when you come to the parliament, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm acquainted of the laws because of what I'm doing. If you know my background, I'm a researcher, I'm very far. I've done animal production, so it's whatever I know, but because now I'm in a place where I have to know the laws, where I have to enact whatever I have to do, I have to search about it law-wise because I'm a lawmaker. So as a lawmaker, you have to be induced to know the laws so that when you speak on an informed point. And when you are even lobbying people, you tell them what is there and what we have to do and what are the gaps which need to be, because now I can say, okay, I want to do this law, yet the law is there already, but it's just not enforced. So I should put my effort to enforce that law. The other thing is that for the parliamentarians and the politicians to play their role on oversight. Okay, you, Minister of Justice, this is your role. Are you doing it? Okay, the police, you have this and this. Are you doing it? Me as a parliamentarian, as a national parliamentarian, I have the mandate, huge mandate and the protection to do it because it's my work. I'm representing people that are going through harm. I have to speak on their behalf and I have to act on their behalf. The other thing is that we have to play the legislative role. Okay, if there is a small gap which need to be, as I said, in that law, that's why laws are being amended. Atong is here, she's a lawyer. There is no law which is set as a Bible, as what you amend the law according to whatever's going. There might be a need to amend law. And for me, as somebody who has been an educationist, for me, I will advise that let include the rights, this learning of rights, this human rights, this women rights things, let's include it in our curriculum so that the next generation, they should know their right and they should know what their responsibility also. Because if you raise a girl who knows that she shouldn't be abused, she won't be abused. First of all, if there is any red flag, she will what? She will know that, this is what? A dangerous zone. I shouldn't be there. And she will know her rights and she will know where to go. Because also, if the abusers are people who have problems, and if you don't prevent them and also let them learn that if you do this, they may end up in big problem or committing offensive, which might lead them to what? To have a life sentence, because we have also to protect them. When you solve a problem, it's not just that we are assisting the victim alone. We are assisting also the abuser who might need help, who might need some assistance so that he will not destroy him or herself. So this, I think, in my view, what we can do as women politicians, as women parliamentarians, so that we really have a very good environment and good society whereby I will be very sure that my daughter, my cousin, my nieces, and also my nephews, because it's not only about girls, women, and what. There are men who are being abused. So that these people will be in a very protective environment and that our very beautiful nation will not have these ugly practices among us. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again. Unfortunately, we've had a challenge with Mama Regina. She has not been able to join us live here, but I'm connecting her on WhatsApp so that she can be able to respond to some of the questions here. Mama Regina, confirm if you're online and if you can be able to hear us. Yes, I'm able to hear you. Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, I'll go straight to the first question that goes to you, Mama Regina. As a Director General at the Ministry of Gender, what policies are in place in South Sudan that protect women of South Sudan against gender-based violence? And are those policies being implemented? Does the Ministry of Gender have any space for the survivors of GBV?
Comprehensive law that protects the children of South Sudan. And this was developed since 2008. And then we have also developed gender policy. Gender policy that enable mainstream gender in all government policies and media frameworks. We also have the strategic national action plan, which is a strategy to end child marriage by 2030. Viola, I was actually hearing what Viola was saying. Viola has talked about the investigation of GBV, which was developed by UNDP for the police. And we have also started to work on the GBV bill. We have already drafted the GBV bill, which is remaining to be taken. It has been taken actually to the Ministry of Justice for legal and we are working progressively on the development of family, which is a very important law that will protect every member of the family. These are some of the few policies that we have, but we are still have to work, especially on the family law, which is still on and then as to whether the policy is being implemented, the Act is being implemented, especially when it comes to the age of child marriage in the Child Act is 18, but it's still you find that a lot of girls are being married before the age of 18. So the implementation is not covered, especially at the state level. When we saw that it is not working properly, we decided with the UNFPA to develop a strategy for national action to end child marriage by 2030. And this is in accordance with the Sustainable Development Goal that African Youth.
Oh, it's unfortunate that we are unable to hear Mama Regina very clearly. So we'll try once again, just in 1 minute.
Okay. What I'm saying, you have what I say about the politics we have the Child Act, which is a legal document that protects the children of God for them from childhood. And it protects children even from GBV, from trafficking, and labor.
Okay, so like I said, we try to connect Mama Regina on board so that she can give us, as a representative from Ministry of Gender, share our opinion on today's topic. And unfortunately, the internet is not giving us the chance to do so. So at this point, I'll go once again, straight to Stella with the next question. Stella, so as we wrap up our conversation, I would like to ask this very last question to you. What are the challenges facing South Sudanese community in diasporas, and what are your recommendations moving forward?
I think one of the challenges that is facing South Sudanese community in diaspora is with moving in a new country, you have to learn all the law and the systems that exist in the country. And a lot of people don't really know what available resources are there for them, even though we we have proper system that supports women who are fleeing gender-based violence. Some people live through these situations without knowing what to do. So the lack of knowledge around available resources, and then shame and stigma. Some victims don't want to talk about it. You know, sometimes you approach people in the community and you talk to one person, and the next minute everyone in the community will know that someone is struggling with domestic violence or they've been beaten with their spouse. So the issue of not being able to support people who are close to us, who we know are dealing with domestic violence situation. And then most of the time, families who sponsor their spouses, you find a lot of gender-based violence going on within these families. And when someone is sponsored and they don't know how to navigate the system except through their spouse who has sponsored them, then it becomes so difficult to report these issues. So they end up living in this domestic violence situation without taking any action or knowing what to do in case they are being abused. In terms of my recommendation moving forward, I think we need to educate, and keep educating the community so they can understand the consequences of gender-based violence. Because if we do not know, and it's already making, sometimes something needs to make you uncomfortable for you to take action. Right now we are talking about these issues and it makes me uncomfortable, right? The stories that are coming up in this discussion, but that's the purpose, and that's the only way people will need to make changes. If you know that your sister is being beaten and they are at the verge of being killed, then you might be pushed to do something. So I think we need to keep educating the community. And if you are a victim of domestic violence, because having worked with individuals who are living in domestic violence situations, sometimes you can provide all the resources that you can give them anything that they need, but at the end of the day, if they're not ready to leave, there's nothing you can do. So just continuing to encourage them to use these resources that are available for them, and being kind to them, ensuring that because sometimes we judge individuals who are living in domestic violence, so not judging them, but supporting them when anyone approaches us. And and learning to empower them, because some people, they need empowerment within this situation. The fact that they're living there does not mean that they can get power. The fact that some of them have survived for 10 years means that there's something they are doing that's keeping them there, or that's making them survive, or that's making them alive. So just educating them and hoping that one day they will use these resources that you are giving them to move on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stella. So really for pointing out some of the challenges and recommendations and how we should move forward. Education is one of the key to empowering women and girls, empowering the survivors, empowering the community against such kind of atrocity, the gender-based violences, which is so inhumane to any kind of human living, as they don't deserve to undergo, experience such kind of situations. So let's continue with our empowerment and education. At this point, I'll go once again to Ms. Viola Ariek. Kindly state the response and prevention mechanism for GBV. What services are available for survivors of GBV in South Sudan? How can they be accessed by those who are in need of services?
I had already talked about this earlier in my previous talking points, Jacqueline, but just to really summarize them up, the services that are available right now in South Sudan, we have the medical services, we have legal services, we have psychosocial services, and we're trying now to really introduce the protection services, like the GBV Safe House. We have identified that we need a safe house in Juba to be able to handle the cases that are really emerging. Like Juba has seen a number of cases of girls fleeing child marriage and forced marriages, women being battered left and right, and then they need really a shelter for them to be able to protect them or to come out from abusive situation for that particular moment. So we need these services. The rest, I think, are ongoing. It's work on progress. We need to start improving them as we go along, and we learn from other neighboring countries on what they are doing. Now, how can they access them? You know, the issue is that most of survivors in South Sudan are actually not aware that by them being physically abused by their husband, that's a crime. They are not aware of the services that are existing for GBV survivors. They also, the issue of access to these services, like, for example, the one-stop centers are located in state headquarters. And you know, South Sudan is a vast country with states and boomers and payams. So it makes it very difficult, and with our accessibility to some of these cities makes it very difficult for survivors to be able to reach there on time. And yet we know that the survivors of rape, for example, need to be medically treated within 72 hours. And so this is also another issue that is causing a lot of hindrance. Now, there are other external fear of being disowned by the family. And again, this could be the reason why most of survivors are keeping quiet. They are really being told, this is a family affair, you should not report it, don't involve the police. Police, on the other hand, are not really exercising the law. And when the survivors come, appreciate the fact that they actually came over. It takes a lot of courage for a survivor to step out from her own comfort zone and to go and seek help. So when they come to the police station, it's actually the need for the police to start encouraging these women for speaking up rather than silencing them and asking them, what did you do to your husband to be battered like this, or to your arm to be broken, or your eye to be pulled out? It's never the fault of the survivor. And I think this is one thing that our police need to understand. When survivors are come out, let's give them an environment where they feel safe, they feel that they have reached the justice, and then they should also act as the justice providers. Let them leave their ego or their patriarchal mindset at home when they're wearing uniform. They must be really implementing the law. So we should avoid questions like, what did you do? You must have done something. You women of these days, or women who are educated, you're not respecting your husband. Your arm has been broken, for goodness sake. That is a crime, and they should handle it as that. They should not act as the lawyers or the judge. Let them leave that to the court. Those of a town will be there to prove who is wrong or who is guilty or who is right. It's not their job to start investigating and start really, saying who is guilty and who is not. That's not their job. Their job is to document, and their job is actually to issue a warrant of arrest when they need to, and their job is to put the case forward to the court to do the judgment. Now, how can this services be assessed? I mentioned earlier on, we have two GBV helpline. We also, for those who are watching, that in each of the main hospital at the state level, the state referral hospital. For example, in Malakal, or in Bor, for example. In Bor, we have one-stop center at the Bor Hospital. In Kwajok, we have one-stop center at Kwajok Hospital. In Wau, we have one-stop center in Wau Teaching Hospital. So these are just to mention a few. So in case you know of a survivor, or you are a survivor yourself, you can reach out to some of these services and see how they can support you. Now, what I need to tell the survivors is that do not suffer in silence, because the more we keep quiet on these things and we start handling issues of domestic violence, in particular, as a family issue, the more we are protecting the perpetrators of gender-based violence, the more the community are going to start saying that this is a family issue that needs to be handled at home. And whereas you're losing yourself. It is not the physical abuse itself, but the emotional part of it is what really can kill you. And so before you die in silence, report these cases. Let's have documentation. Let's start having figures to lobby for the policymakers and say, look, the GBV cases have risen up from this year to this year. We need to know what is happening, and so that we can have studies and we can have strategies on how we can really prevent gender-based violence. Again, I have to say gender-based violence is not the survivor issue. Gender-based violence breaks homes. Gender-based violence leads children to low performance in school, because a child that is raised in an unhealthy environment has a number of consequences that child will have to tolerate in the future. So it's not just that you have slapped the woman, but is the child watching to see this? What signal are you sending to that particular child? So we must really have to accept that it's okay for children to live in healthy environment. And for us to do that, the parents must really work on that. Now, my last point on this, Jacqueline, is that what are my recommendations in moving forward? I have basically about 6 of them. One, we need to really improve access to GBV services. Again, survivors must be able to access and reach to these GBV services. They need them. They become timely. If they are bleeding, if they are stressed, they need these services. We need to intensify our awareness raising that we're doing. If we're doing it wrong, we need to learn from what other countries are doing. How have they managed to reach where they are? So we need really to embark on this. We need to bring perpetrators to justice, to book. Some of these cases have to be tried, and I'm happy the GBV court is doing at least something that needs to be recommended. Once the society starts seeing that if you have sexual intercourse with a 15-year-old girl, you have committed a crime and you're going to be sentenced to 10 years in prison. Those are the cases that we want to really publish and let the public know that it is not norm as usual. Now, we need also to strengthen the system and enactment of GBV law. We have now realized that this legal framework are scattered everywhere. Like they are in different legislation. We need to harmonize them so that our lawyers have something that they can really and they can really push their case forward. So the enactment of anti-GBV bill is one of the issues that we really need to do. My last point is basically what Honorable Dr. Uda said earlier on. We need to include GBV prevention in the training curriculum. Yes, we might have lost the men right now, but South Sudan will not be going a good direction if we don't focus on the younger generation. We need to bring the younger generation as a younger generation that understands that gender equality is here to stay. And it is okay for women to be sitting on the same table with men and speak their voice, and that's fine. So let's also focus very much on the younger generation and to raise an equal generation of South Sudan. I think this is where I will stop, and thank you for having me for this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Viola. So allow me to go straight again to Honorable Atong. Yes. Honorable Atong, what are the legal challenges facing women of South Sudan, and what are your recommendations moving forward?
Okay, thank you so much. I think the legal challenges that are facing women in South Sudan is first of all access to justice. Women do not have access to justice because when you right away start opening the case, that is where the legal procedure starts from, by going to the police station, opening a case. That is the first one. So if you are not able to open the case, then you are denied access to justice. If you are not given the chance to bring the perpetrator to the law, then you are not given the chance to access justice. So the first problem is access to justice, and how you can actually hold accountable the perpetrators, regardless of who they are. Because a perpetrator will be a perpetrator, whether they are husbands, whether they are parents, whether they are brothers. they will remain perpetrators, and the other way around. Because when we talk about gender-based violence, men will be like, even the same is happening to some men, and you women are not talking about it. Because gender refers to both gender. So if it is men going through the gender-based violence, he is okay to come forward with it. And I'm very sure if today a man come to me and tell me that I want to open a case against a certain woman or my wife because she's actually beating me, or she tried to kill me, she tried to pour hot water on me or anything, I will definitely open that case, because it is gender-based violence, whether it is against women or against a man. But the reason as to why we focus so much on women, because women are the one that go through gender-based violence. So it is gender-based violence against women. You go to the police station, it is men there. Plus also our culture. Our culture is a patriarchy culture, where if a man come today, definitely he will get all the answers to their question. A man will come to the police station and say, I want to open a case against my wife because he tried to kill my children, without even asking the woman why. She will definitely be put in. So access to justice is another problem. And then another thing is for the women lawyers themselves, or women activists themselves. In our society, it's a challenge being an activist. You will be given different names. It's a challenge to be a human rights activist or a human rights lawyer. Definitely, you are a family spoiler. You are against marriages. You don't want to see happy marriages going on. That is the first thing that you will be accused with. So even the women lawyers or women advocate, or let's say women activists who are providing services, also have some challenges that they go through in the communities. And the only way where we will make these things not to look normal is by giving the communities a lot of awareness around that area. Being an activist, it means you are talking on behalf of someone who is not able to talk, or you are trying to take their voice to where it can be heard better, or where a decision can be taken. A woman will be shouting in Gudele and she doesn't know where to go. But if today women activists went and heard that this woman is going through certain problems, and they raise that issue and do advocacy around that area, I am sure it will be heard by so many people, and maybe she will get help for the situation she's in. So being a woman activist does not mean that she's a feminist who is extremely not looking for marriage, not looking for a family. This is very wrong. These are wrong perceptions about our communities. The problem is that if it is happening to your sister, it's a different case. But if it is happening to someone else, it's a different case. Until when we understand that this issue can happen to a person that I don't know, and it has to be an issue, that is when we will have that environment that will favor the survivors and will favor also the service providers, regardless of who they are. So my recommendations and moving forward is that men have to join women in advocating to end gender-based violence in South Sudan, whether it is gender-based violence against women or men. All of us have to come together and fight it. Parents have to take it as a crime. Take it as a crime. Someone will marry your daughter. He's not buying your daughter. I remember even in the villages when we used to be told stories about things that were happening in the villages. They will say when a lady is married off, the family will be telling the husband that she is yours. The body is yours, but the bone is ours. That is to say, she is your wife, You can have children, you can have everything, but you don't have to beat her, or you don't have to break her teeth or any of her bones, then we will come in. So why is our culture changing? We are putting that part of negative culture in it. We are taking our culture as a bad thing. Our culture is not bad. It's how we are practicing it that is bad. You know, in our communities, beating a woman was being a weak man. You don't beat a woman, because you will be perceived as someone who is weak, because you are beating someone who cannot fight you. So today the culture have changed. That's not how it used to be. So men have to join hands with women and fight this gender-based violence. That's when we will have a very good community. That's when we will have kids coming up in a very good way, because they have a very nice environment growing in it. And my recommendation to the women lawyers and women advocate, we have to continue giving awareness. I know most of these organizations are providing awareness, but we need more awareness around those areas so that we make the public well informed about these issues. We have to let the communities be aware that these are crimes, and then there are particular sections under the laws that actually protect women or girls or men from being harassed, from being abused by whoever that person is. So this is my my recommendation to the women lawyers. And then my advice to our women of South Sudan outside there: GBV is not a normal thing; it's a crime, and it is punishable by law. And continue to be coming out so that we can fight it. We are not saying divorce your husbands. It is fighting GBV, because you will also want your children to grow in an environment that is safe for them. You don't want to see your son beating their wives, as you will not see your daughter being beaten by another man. So thank you so much for that. I hope I have really come out with what was expected from me. And then to our viewers that are online, thank you for supporting some of our points. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Atong. So my very last question will now go to Honorable Dr. Wada. What are the challenges facing women parliamentarians, politicians in advancing the agenda of women and combating harmful practices impacting the lives of women and girls in South Sudan? What are your recommendations, and what message can you tell the public as a leader regarding the issue of gender-based violence?
Thank you very much. As you have seen, and all of us went through a lot of laws and provision put in place to fight the gender-based violence. So it means that we are not lacking the laws, but the main problem is the enforcement of these laws, is the implementation of the laws. So this is one of the problems, because mainly sometimes you as a woman or a lawmaker or a politician, you want these laws to be implemented, but sometimes there are people in the decision makers who are not through those laws, because some of them think that, okay, this is not very important laws, and some of them are not even aware that these are crimes. So the first thing is that the women are facing is that there are laws, but they are not being implemented. So we have to work together so that the women who are going through gender-based violence get their rights through the laws which are put in place. The other thing is that, as I said, we have to advocate that we lobby most of the decision makers so that they be on our side, and we fight that we have a bigger percentage of women being included in the decision making position, because they are the one who are going through, one who feel it. And I want to just tell you that
people think that those who are going through the gender-based violence are those who are vulnerable, those who don't even have position. But let me tell you that there are many women who hold very high positions and they're going through, and it is more difficult for them to come out and talk about it.
Yes. Yes.
So they shouldn't. It shouldn't be ignored that there are people who are in key positions that are going through it sometimes because even of those positions, but they're not able to talk. So everyone needs help. I can remember the movement of Me Too. It started by one person coming out and talking. And I really want to applaud and appreciate Viola because she admitted and said that she herself is a survivor of gender-based violence. Some people don't have the courage to say this. So if one is start to talking, that Me, as we can see, have very vocal, very strong, somebody who's fighting for the rights of other people, that she went through it, and in a way or another, she made it to be a positive thing to help those who are going through it. So this also can help. So of the politician, the parliamentarian is for us to, and I love that baby because it's you shouldn't really, we are mothers, we have done a lot of online things and baby are there, it has been very long. It means you are a mother, you are doing very great. So we should really that we have a person about the parliamentarians in the East Africa. South Sudan was, I thought that South Sudan will be the last who has like women in decision making and women parliament. But guess what? Kenya was the least in the East Africa community. Why? Because violence against women is so much, especially the politicians and the parliamentarians and the decision makers. They're being threatened, they're being a lot of things. So they fear to come into this decision making unless you are really very bold. So we are doing well. And the way forward is that let's raise awareness, outreach and awareness to decision makers, to our parliamentarians. And I want even to appreciate the Women Caucus, the parliamentarians. They're working very hard. And I wish that this new parliament will elect very strong and will have very strong women parliamentarians also who will go ahead and also continue in fighting for the women cause. And also let's lobby, as I said, let's lobby for the seats for women. And again, let's give alternative measures. How? Because you cannot tell a woman to come out of her abusive environment without giving her the supportive system. Where will she end? Maybe you are a lawyer, you're a women activist, you're a parliamentarian, you have your home, which is peaceful, you will advocate for her, you will take her out of that environment, but where will she end? And that's why really I wanted, had some concerns with Mama Regina, if they're planning for safe homes and things like this, because whoever's going through abuse, they need emotional support. They are broken in pieces. They need physical support. They need economical support so that they be strong and they might not be denied. Because most of the women go back because of what they're not able. The families are not able to sustain them, and they go back where? Because they will be carrying babies. She's not the only one even. She will have her kids. No one is ready to take care of this of her and her luggage, as we say. The other thing is that we have to approach this in a multi-sector approach, because the gender-based violence is not only one sector to deal with it. It's not only women to deal with it. Men also should be involved, because the men say, okay, you are doing this and you have this. What are you doing about it? Yet this gender-based violence mostly is not a woman to a woman. It can be, but mostly it's the opposite sex. If it's a woman to a man or a man to a woman, or the vice versa. So it needs the men to be involved, the lawmakers, the government, the religious leaders, the activists, the traditional leaders, and everyone should get involved so that, we have a safe society. If we have safe homes, we will have a peaceful community. If we have a peaceful community, we will have a peaceful country. And just a message. My message is for us, it's really alarming when you read about South Sudan and the gender-based violence and all the form of the violence. You find that the gender-based violence is number one, followed by sexual violence, followed by other harmful practices, and then the female genital mutilation. We don't have it. It's like the least, and then the child and forced marriages. So these are alarming because it is the number one. What happened? As Atong said, in my tribe, when they give you your wife, they said, okay, she is yours, but the bone is ours. If she lose a tooth, we will ask you. If her bone is broken, it means that you don't mean on her very harmful practices, beating, all these things will come and ask you. And that's why even some cultures if their daughter died or wife died, they say, okay, her bones is for us, we will bury her. So it was not our culture. Really thought that we will have a psychologist among us here because there are reasons why people go for gender-based violence. And these people, as I said, those who abuse, they also go through many things. They need help and they need assistance. And I think it's increasing because of the trauma which the South Sudanese went through all these 50 years of violence. It was not like this before. Our grandmothers, even if they were beaten, it was not to the extent of breaking, stepping, all these things were not there. The other thing is that for the families, for the girls, and those who are going through abuse, for the women, it is not your fault. If you are being told it's your fault, it's your fault. It's not your fault. You are not supposed to be treated like this, even if you committed what? And it's your right to speak. We have good cultures, yes, but if these cultures, some of them are harmful and not supporting our survivors, we have laws. We have laws which can support us and which prevent and they're against this abuse. The other thing is for the parent. If your daughter, if your sisters, if your cousins are going through, please, parents, please, families, you listen, because there's no one who can complain without anything. It's better to get a daughter who's alive than receiving a dead body. You better reach when it is possible, because it is not only this victim whom you are saving, it's only the abuser, because he might or she might even go to the extent of committed an offense which will end their life in the prison. And I really want to thank the forum for having me with this very beautiful, talented, and very strong ladies. And let's really pray that we will have a safer South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Wada, for the final conclusion and recommendation that has been submitted in this conversation here today. Before we come to the end of this interesting discussion, I would like to thank our great panelists for taking their time to participate in this conversation. And my big thanks goes to everyone out there for tuning in for this discussion today. I would like to thank our team members working behind the scenes, especially the UN Women, for providing the internet for the great panelists in Juba and a safe space for this discussion. We have now come to the end of our show. Good morning, good evening, and good night to all of you, wherever you are. Thank you all so much, and may God bless you.
Thank you for having us.